Hello, good evening, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. In this session, we will share complete and comprehensive guidance for you to crack the civil services examination. In this session, which would be of about 90 minutes, stay with me till the end, and I promise you will not regret. And if you, at the end of the session, would feel benefited by this session, by the content of the session, please do not forget to press the like button, drop in your comments, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of these classes with your friends and fellow aspirants. But first things first, if you're somebody who is looking for online guidance to prepare for the civil services examination, I urge you that you should consider our live online classroom program, which starts April 6, 2024. In 1,000 plus hours of live classes, we shall cover the entire syllabus for prelims as well as the mains examination. And your favorite teachers would be teaching you live every evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Apart from that, you will get access to the test series, weekly unit tests, prelims test series, mains test series, study material, and if you are an iconic subscriber, you will also get access to one-on-one mentorship. So this session is specifically focused on those who are appearing in the civil services examination and are somewhat confused or lost as to what it takes to qualify this civil services examination in single attempt. People often consider that civil services examination, which is conducted by Union Public Service Commission, is the world's toughest examination. But is it? Let's look at the data. Why do people say that civil services examination is the world's toughest examination? Because more than 1 million aspirants apply for this exam, and the number of posts are 800, 900, 1,000, which means the success rate is very low. Hence, it is the world's toughest examination. But it is not. Why? And listen to me carefully. Yes, it is true that more than 1 million aspirants apply for the civil services examination, which means more than 10 lakh aspirants fill the form to write the civil services examination. But as soon as the exam date nears, only half of them appear in the examination. That means only 5 lakh appear in the exam, which means the remaining 5 lakh gone. So is it the world's toughest examination then? No. But let's look at these numbers even more deeply. If 5 lakh people, aspirants, write the civil services exam, most of them are non-serious. Some of them are appearing in this exam because they have been pressurized by their families. Some of them write this exam because they have been promised a new iPhone in return for them writing this examination. Some of them are writing this exam because their friends are also preparing and writing this examination. Long story short, the competition is between 50,000 to 75,000 serious aspirants who are religiously preparing for this exam, who are revising the topics, who are taking mock tests, who are revising and taking tests on a regular basis. The competition, the real competition, is between 50,000 to 75,000 aspirants. And out of them, the UPSC will have to choose 1,000 candidates who will clear this examination. So out of 75,000 aspirants, if 1,000 posts are announced and notified by UPSC, then is it the world's toughest examination? Because the success rate is much, much better. It is a NEET examination than your real NEET exam. So this is not the world's toughest exam. And on top of that, you hear statements. For example, a statement given by the economic advisor to the government, the member of Economic Advisory Committee of the Prime Minister, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, who says UPSC is a waste of time. But I think media has only projected and focused on one statement given by Mr. Sanyal. Mr. Sanyal says, unless and until you really want to be part of the administration, you should not be taking this examination, which is true for any other profession. Can we say that you should not work so hard in the field, because not everybody can become an MS Dhoni, or not everybody can participate in the cricket IPL. Not everybody can represent India at the international cricket tournaments. Then why should you be wasting your time preparing and rigorously following the regimen to become an ace cricketer? By that logic, we should not tell people that you should waste your time in theatre. You should waste your time in honing your acting skills, because not everybody can be a superstar like Rajesh Khanna or the Shah Rukh Khan or Ranbir Kapoor's. That is why we say, don't look at those who will try to pull you down. Every Tom, Dick and Harry has an advice. Now, I'm not for one suggesting that Mr. Sanyal is not having a real voice. Voltaire said, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend till death your right to say it. So no matter what people say, if this is your passion, if this is your dream, if this is something that you really want to do, there should be no one else who should be able to dictate terms to you. But yes, the process is difficult. And what is that process? For example, if you look at those who are arrested under PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the conviction rate is very poor. Majority of these accused are set free, are acquitted by the courts. But you will be finding it very difficult to obtain bail if you are arrested under PMLA. So this process becomes your punishment. Similarly, this is not the world's toughest examination, because we have looked at the data, and the data clearly says that the real competition is between 50,000 to 75,000 students. The exam is not difficult, but the process is difficult. And what is that process? The prelims is in May. Normally it is conducted in May every year, but this year it will be conducted in June because of the Lok Sabha elections. Then the mains examination in September. Then March, April, the final interview will be scheduled. So this entire process takes close to 2 years of your time. That means this process becomes your punishment. If you're unable to crack this exam in the single attempt, then in the next attempt, you will have to start from scratch. You will have to go back and appear for the prelims examination, then mains, then the personality test. And in one single go, once you clear all the 3 stages, your name is there in the list of the successful candidates released by the UPSC. Long story short, is this the world's toughest examination? No. Is UPSC a waste of time? Depends on who you are. If this is something that is thrust upon you, if this is something where your heart does not lie, if this is something that your parents, your family has forced upon you, then don't do it. But if you really want power, prestige in the society, if you really want an opportunity to serve the lives of the millions of the people of this country, if this is really your dream, then you should go for the Civil Services Examination. And ultimately, it has to be your call. Neither me, nor Mr. Sanyal, nor anyone else, not even Mr. Modi, should tell you or should have the power to tell you to prepare for this exam. The buck lies with you, the buck stops at you, and at the same time, it has to be your call. But if it is not the world's toughest exam, then what does it take to crack the Civil Services Examination in one attempt, in single attempt? For that, keep in mind 3 things, and there are 3 ingredients to success. The first thing is motivation. What do we mean by motivation? And it has to be self-motivation. By listening to motivational speakers on YouTube, you will not be able to gain motivation. And what is this motivation? Normally, 1 year before the prelims exam, your preparation should ideally start. Then you're preparing for the prelims, then you're preparing for the mains examination, then you're appearing in the interview. And God forbid, if you believe in God, if you're unable to crack this exam in that attempt, then you'll have to start the process again. So this process becomes difficult. There are only 2 kinds of aspirants: those who quit and those who do not. If you will not quit, there is no reason why you can't crack this examination. But if you will quit, obviously you will not be in a position to qualify the Civil Services Examination. And who are these individuals who do not quit? Those who are self-motivated. Whenever you decide to prepare for the civil services examination, close your eyes and ask yourself one basic fundamental question. Why is it that I want to write this exam? Why is it that I want to be part of bureaucracy? Why is it that there has to be a fire inside me that I want to be part of IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, and so many other services that you can be part of once you qualify this examination? Motivation can be anything. This is my dream. I want power, prestige, status in the society. I want to prove to those irritating uncles who said and who told me that you are good for nothing and you can do nothing in your life. I want to prove it to myself that I'm capable of qualifying the most prestigious examination in this country. No matter what happened in the past. I may never have been a good student, neither in school, nor in college, nor in a university. But if there is one exam which can prove all my critics wrong, which can prove all my detractors wrong, that is the civil services exam, the mother of all examinations. And once you clear this exam, you will see that your life changes for good and changes forever. Not just for you, but your whole generation. In terms of your entire family and generations of your family. Because even after 100 years, people are going to talk about you. That my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather was a civil servant. He was part of IAS, he was part of IPS, he was part of foreign services. Motivation can be anything, but without motivation, it becomes difficult, almost impossible to crack this examination. So before you start your preparation, ask this question. Why is it so important for me to crack this exam? And after that, no matter what hurdles come your way, you will be able to sustain them. That is what famous heavyweight boxer Muhammad Ali said. I hated every minute of my training, but I told myself, suffer now and live the rest of the life like a champion. And he did it. So you'll have to suffer. You'll have to sacrifice a lot in these 2 years of your preparation time. But after that, the grass is greener. After that, the life is beautiful. That doesn't mean there won't be further challenges in your life, but those challenges would be easily surmountable. There has to be motivation. And once you're motivated, then comes the second part. You have to be disciplined. And what do I mean by disciplined? That does not mean that you will have to study 24 hours a day. So you will hear stories about two extremes. One extreme saying, I studied 24 hours a day, that's how I could crack this examination. Another extreme, I hardly studied 2 to 3 hours on a daily basis, but I was born genius and I was meant to crack the civil services examination. The real story lies somewhere in the middle. If you are an average student, and on an average you're devoting 5 to 6 hours on a daily basis, consistently for 1 year, take it in writing, you will crack this exam. And if anybody is telling you that you will not, based on your previous grades, based on your previous occupation, based on your previous educational qualification, then don't believe in them, believe in yourself. You know what your worth is, and you know you can crack this examination. Discipline is, there has to be a timetable. This is not the world's toughest exam. There is a well-defined syllabus for this exam, and then there is a newspaper. Link the static portion of your syllabus with current affairs. Make notes, revise, take as many tests as possible. Problem solved. Yes, it appears it's very simple, but that is what the strategy is to crack this exam. And that is what we call KISS. Keep it simple strategy. There is a syllabus for this exam, one book per subject, revise it multiple times, link it with current affairs, make notes. If you're unable to make notes, I'll give you an alternative to that as well. That is why stay with me till the end. Practice as many questions as possible. Mains is all about answer writing. Learn the art of answer writing, because answer writing is an art which you need to learn, relearn, learn again and again. Disciplined approach. And finally, guidance. Someone has got to tell you what to study, but even more importantly, what not to study. And even more importantly, how to study. So there are 3 ingredients to success. First, you have to be self-motivated. Second, Once you're motivated, you know nothing is going to distract me for the next 2 years of my preparation time, and this is the schedule that I will have to create. This is the timetable that I have to maintain. I will stick to it. That does not mean, listen to me carefully, that does not mean there will come a day, there will come a time where you don't want to study, where you don't feel like studying, where you're reading but your mind is hovering around labasna. Don't study that day. Take a break. Pause, rewind, watch a movie, listen to a song, go out, talk to friends, go on a drive, do whatever you want to do. Don't study, but next day, start afresh. And don't mourn the loss of one day that you have witnessed previously. Keep it simple. This is a simple exam to crack. Anybody with a brain can qualify this exam. And if you are alive, which you are because you're attending my session, and if you have a brain, which you have, otherwise you would not be clicking on this video, there is no reason why you can't clear this exam. So if somebody is trying to pressurize you into believing that this is the world's toughest exam, you have to compete with the students who are from IITs, IIMs, NITs, AIMS, top institutes, you can't do that, you don't stand a chance, don't believe in anyone else except yourself. But then, there are two important documents that you will have to understand. Normally what happens, when you decide to prepare for the civil services exam, you rush to the nearest bookshop or you open the e-commerce apps and you start ordering all the books that any Tom, Dick and Harry would recommend. By reading blogs, by watching such YouTube videos, whatever books are recommended, you go and buy them. Collect them. So before becoming district collector, you're becoming a book collector. Don't become a book collector if you have an aspiration for a district collector's job. Does UPSC recommend that you should read NCERTs for this exam? It doesn't. Does UPSC recommend that you should read the Hindu newspaper for this examination? It does not. Does UPSC recommend that you should read M. Lakshmikant for Indian polity? Or you should follow this website for current affairs? It does not. Does UPSC recommend you that you should attend online classrooms program of Unacademy to qualify the civil services exam? It does not. UPSC releases only two documents, two official documents. And unfortunately, both these documents are neglected by the civil services aspirants. Which are these two documents? One is the syllabus. The other is previous year's question papers. Why are these two documents important? Listen to me carefully. Syllabus tells you what to study. Previous year's question papers tell you how to study. Previous year's question papers tell you what to anticipate. What sort of questions can be asked in the civil services examination? How? Listen to me carefully. If you go through the syllabus of the civil services exam, you will have to follow subjects such as polity, geography, history, in history, art and culture, ancient India, medieval India, modern India, India after independence, world history, then economics, then international relations, disaster management, optional subjects, so many different books, so many different subjects, so many different topics you will have to study. But is it not true that most of these subjects you will have to study if you're preparing for the State Public Service Commission examination as well? Most of these subjects you will have to study if you're preparing for the SSC exams. Most of these subjects you will have to study if you're preparing for so-called one-day exams, one-day government exams. Yes, then what's the difference? Does that mean if you prepare for those exams, you can automatically prepare for the IAS exams as well? No. That is why syllabus has to be read in consonance with the previous year's question papers, because previous year's question papers will tell you how to study. For example, we have a subject called polity. The most important subject for the civil services exam. And why? Because I teach this subject. But humor aside, an important subject. All subjects are important. This is also an important subject. There is a subject called polity. In polity, you'll have to study the Constitution of India. You'll have to study the various laws passed by the Parliament. You will have to study various Supreme Court judgments. For example, you'll have to study constitutions such as preamble, fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, the role of the governor, so on and so forth. You will have to study the laws passed by the Parliament. For example, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. For example, Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019. You will have to follow various Supreme Court judgments. For example, what did the Supreme Court rule on electoral bond scheme? Why did the Supreme Court upheld the EWS reservation for economically weaker sections of the society? What did the Supreme Court rule on the petition filed by those who wanted to legalize same-sex marriages in India, marriages for LGBTQIA plus community? All this you'll have to read. But then when you look at the previous year's question papers, you will understand that the approach that you need to follow for civil services exam is different when we compare it with any other exam, any other government exam, any other state level exam. For example, you may be asked in any examination, in any government exam, one-day exams, how many schedules are there in the Indian Constitution? 9, 10, 11, 12. Pick the right answer. And you would know 12 is the right answer. But in UPSC Civil Services Examination, you may be asked in depth about the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Consider the following statements regarding anti-defection law, regarding 10th schedule of the Constitution, and which of the following statements are correct. A legislator can be disqualified if you're violating the whip issued by the political party. A legislator can be disqualified if you voluntarily resign from your political party. So in-depth understanding of these schedules, that is Civil Services Examination. And how would we know that? By looking at previous year's question papers. Because if you do not understand the previous year's question papers, it is similar to you are trying to use an electronic device, or you're using a kitchen appliance without going through the manual of that appliance. And in all likelihood, you will destroy that appliance, or you will not be able to reap the real benefit from that appliance. So 2 important documents. Once motivation is done, you are self-motivated, you need to prepare a timetable, stick to it. You need a guide as well, and this guide can be anybody. Can be a teacher of your coaching institute, can be a friend who is also preparing for this exam, can be somebody who has already cracked this exam and now he or she is volunteering into guiding you, can be somebody, can be anybody, but there has to be a mentor, there has to be a guide without which it becomes difficult for you to follow the right path. And once that is done, take a look at 2 very important documents. Syllabus, because syllabus will tell you what to study, and previous year's question papers will tell you how to study, how deep to dig into these particular topics. For example, in other exams, you may be asked, who is the current governor of Karnataka? That can be a question that can be asked in your exam. But for the Civil Services Examination, the question can be, according to the Constitution, which of the following are the qualifications mentioned for someone to be appointed as the governor of a state? The question can be, the office of governor is the relic of colonial era and should be abolished. Critically analyze. So in-depth understanding is required for cracking the Civil Services Examination. But not just this. And listen to me carefully. By looking at previous year's question papers, you will not only find answer to this question, how to study, you should also be looking for answers to another very important question, which is what to anticipate. What to anticipate? There are questions asked in the examination, whether it is in prelims or it is in mains examination. You need to ask this question to yourself, why this particular question was asked. If I can get to know what was the rationale, what was the reasoning behind asking this question, I would be better prepared for the upcoming examination. If I know why this question was asked in 23 or 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, then I should be in a position to be prepared for 2024 and onwards, 2025 and onwards. Because if this is the logic used by UPSC in asking questions, I have to be better prepared. For example, I'll give you a few examples. Listen to me carefully. In 2023 prelims, there was a question asked on Official Secrets Act. Now, you tell me why this question was asked. Sir, does that mean we will have to study all the laws, all the acts passed by the parliament or during the colonial period as well? Do we have to read all of this and that too in great detail? This question was asked, my dear, because this law was passed in the year 1923. 1923 till 2023, 100th anniversary of Official Secrets Act. That is why this question was asked. So these anniversaries are also very important. First anniversary, 10th anniversary, 25th anniversary, 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary, 125th anniversary, 100th anniversary. Anticipate that if there is an anniversary falling in 2024 or 2025, when I'm preparing, when I'm writing this exam, you should definitely expect a question on that. I'll give you one more example. This is something that we call backward linkages. What is this backward linkages? When was emergency imposed in India? And all of you would be aware that this emergency was imposed in the year 1975. But that was not the first time when emergency was imposed in India. The first time emergency was imposed was in 1962, when there was India-China war. The second time it was imposed in 1971, when there was a war between India and Pakistan, which led to the independence of Bangladesh, which led to the emergence of Bangladesh as an independent entity on the world map. The third one was in 1975, and this 1975 emergency was the notorious one, when Srimati Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, when emergency was imposed on the grounds of internal disturbance. But be that as it may, in 2015, prelims, a question was asked on Congress Socialist Party. Sir, why was this question asked? Now listen to me carefully. 1975 emergency was imposed. In 2015 it was the 40th anniversary of emergency. But not only that, some important statements were made in 2015. One such statement was made by Shri Lal Krishna Advani, who was previously the Deputy Prime Minister. He said the forces of emergency, the forces which imposed emergency in 1975, they are present even now. So the press lapped on this statement and thought that he is referring to Mr. Modi. So will Mr. Modi be in a position to impose emergency again? So is this another conflict between Mr. Advani and Mr. Modi? Be that as it may, this was a hot topic in 2015. UPSC does not ask who was the Prime Minister when emergency was imposed in 1975. That may be asked in other exams, other government exams, but not in UPSC. But who fought against emergency? Who fought against Srimati Indira Gandhi, which led to the emergence of imposition of emergency in India? That person was JP, J. Prakash Narayan. What is JP's contribution to India's history? In 1934, he founded a Congress Socialist Party. Backward linkage. Question will not be on emergency. Question may be about a personality who was prominent during that period, JP. Question can be about his contribution to India's history. In 1934, he was one of the 3 individuals to found Congress Socialist Party. So the question was, consider the following statements. Which of the following statements regarding Congress Socialist Party is or are correct? That is why, look at syllabus, look at previous year's question papers. But for why and for what? To find an answer to 3 important pressing questions. What to study, how to study, and what to anticipate. What sort of questions can be asked in the examination? That is why when you look at these questions, you should be able to understand why these questions were asked, so that in 2024, 2025, 2026, when I am attempting this exam, I should be in a position to also anticipate what sort of questions can be asked. One more example. With reference to Chauset Yogini temple situated near Morena, consider the following statements. Sir, does that mean we will have to follow all the different temples in India, all the different religious structures in India? Then there is no start, there is no end to the syllabus of this examination. Then why are you saying this is not the world's toughest exam? This is the world's toughest exam because UPSC can ask anything under the sun, which means people are right when they say it is not Union Public Service Commission, it is Unpredictable Service Commission. But do you know why this question was asked? This question was asked because a new parliament was being constructed, a new parliament building was being constructed to replace the old parliament. And if you're aware of the architecture, of the style of the old parliament, it was circular in shape. This question was asked because the design of the Chauset Yogini temple at Morena in Madhya Pradesh, its design was such that its design, because this temple was also circular in shape, and it was argued that the design of this temple inspired the design of the old parliament building, which was to be replaced by a new parliament building. Hence, this question was asked in the exam. And I can give you numerous examples one by one, where if you link whatever things were in the news, whatever topics were in the news, those questions related to those topics, related to those concepts, questions were asked in the exam. For example, the question was asked in 2020 regarding MP LAD, Members of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme. Sir, why was this question asked? Does that mean we will have to focus on every other scheme that is launched by the government? This question was asked because in 2020, at the time of the COVID-19 lockdown, this MP LAD scheme was suspended by the government. Which means places in news becomes important for your exam. Any law which is in the news becomes important for your exam. Any historical figure in the news becomes important for your exam. Any scheme in the news becomes important for your exam. Any concept in the news becomes important for your exam. How? By looking at, understanding two important documents released officially by the UPSC. One is the syllabus, the other previous year's question papers. Is that clear? Now listen to me carefully. When you look at the syllabus of the Civil Services Examination, this is how the Prelims syllabus appears. It starts with current events of national and international importance, a monster known as current affairs. Then it talks about subjects such as history, geography, polity, so on and so forth. But the syllabus of prelims is not too elaborate, is not too well defined. It only focuses on topics such as Indian polity and governance, constitution, political system, so on and so forth. But when we look at the main syllabus, because in mains exam, you have 4 GS papers, you have to pick an optional subject of your choice. Then there is an essay paper as well. Then there are 2 compulsory papers, but these are only qualifying in nature. One is the English language paper, the other is any Indian language paper. You just have to score qualifying marks, but whether you score more than qualifying marks or what, maximum, doesn't matter because those marks will not be counted. The marks that you score in GS 1 to 4, the marks that you score in optional subject, the marks that you score in essay, all this will be counted to determine whether you are going to appear in the personality test. So prelims is also qualifying in nature. In fact, we say prelims is the rejection test. Of all these 5 lakh people, aspirants, who write the civil services examination, majority of them, almost every one of them is to be rejected. And for that, we do the screening called prelims. If the cutoff is 87, if the cutoff is 90, for example, And if you're scoring 190 or 199.90, doesn't matter because these marks will not be counted in the final scheme of things. Prelims is only qualifying in nature. But the marks that you score in mains, which means 1,000 marks in 4 GS papers, 250 marks each per paper, 500 for your optional subject, 250 for your essay, 1750 marks. Plus the marks that you score in interview out of 275 marks. The marks that you obtain in mains plus the personality test plus the interview shall determine whether you are in the final list or not. What is your rank? Whether you are in the top 10, top 100 or towards the end of the list. But the syllabus for mains is well defined. GS1, it talks about history, it talks about geography, it talks about the society of India. GS paper 2 talks about polity, governance, social justice. It talks about international relations. GS3 talks about economic development, science and technology, environment and ecology, disaster management, internal security. GS paper 4 talks about ethics, integrity and aptitude. So the syllabus is well defined. Well defined in the sense, in GS paper 2, when you look at the syllabus, it tells you exactly what you have to study. In Indian Constitution, what are the historical underpinnings? What is the evolution? What are the features? What are the amendments? What is this concept called basic structure? How do you compare Indian Constitution with the Constitution of the world countries? What is the Representation of the People Act? What are these various ministries? So on and so forth. Everything is mentioned in great detail. Sir, why are you telling us this? Because I want you to answer me, what is the fundamental difference between prelims and the mains examination? And don't tell me, sir, prelims is about MCQs. One question will be given, a statement will be given, then there are 4 options. You have to pick the right answer. You will have to pick the most appropriate answer. And in mains, you will have to write descriptive answers in 150 words, 250 words, depending upon the requirement of the question. I'm not asking that. I'm asking what is the fundamental difference between prelims and the mains. And this is where majority of the aspirants, they falter. Because you're like a robo. Whatever I'm telling you to do, whatever your mentor is telling you to do, whatever any Tom, Dick and Harry is telling you to do on a YouTube video, a motivational video, you've tried to follow it. You try to imbibe it without applying your own sensible mind. What's the difference between prelims and mains? If you can answer this question, half of the battle is won. Prelims is about 2 things. Prelims is about facts. Prelims is about concepts. UPSC will ask questions which will test, which will judge you, whether you have the factual knowledge, whether you have the conceptual clarity. That will be the focus of UPSC when it comes to the prelims exam. Mains is also about 2 things. Mains is about elaboration. Mains is about analysis. UPSC will judge you, test you, whether you can elaborate whatever is there in your syllabus, whether you can analyze, whether you have the analytical ability to answer these questions. That will be the focus of the mains exam. Sir, this is not clear. Can you give us an example? Yes. There is one important paragraph given in your syllabus. That's why syllabus is important. In GS paper 2, in polity, it says you will have to study appointment to various constitutional posts, powers, functions and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. One such constitutional body is CAG, Comptroller and the Auditor General of India, UPSC, State Public Service Commission, Election Commission of India, Finance Commission, National Commission for Backward Classes. Which reminds me, one such constitutional body is National Commission for Backward Classes. Previously, it was a statutory body. Statutory body in the sense, this body was created by the Act of the Parliament, by the law passed by the Parliament. Then it was given constitutional status. When 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act was passed, it was given constitutional status. What is the question on your mind? Can you tell me? What is the question on your mind when I say that this was previously a statutory body, now it is given a constitutional status? The first question that you should be asking me is, sir, what happens if a body is given a constitutional status? That question was asked in the mains examination. Analytical ability. Whether your mind will go to this in this direction and ask, what happens to a body if it is given a constitutional status? This body was in the news, that is why the question was asked. Similarly, one such constitutional body is the Attorney General for India. Prelims is about facts and concepts. Mains is about elaboration, whether those topics you can elaborate. And UPSC is asking in Mains 2021, the Attorney General is the Chief Legal Advisor and Lawyer of the Government of India. Discuss. And you will fetch 15 marks if you'll answer it correctly. Although they won't give you 15 marks, but maximum marks are 15. Mains. Same topic for prelims examination. What sort of question can be asked? This question was asked. Consider the following statements. Attorney General for India can take part in the proceedings of Lok Sabha, be a member of a committee of the Lok Sabha, speak in the Lok Sabha, vote in the Lok Sabha. Concepts, facts. So, can Attorney General take part in the proceedings of Lok Sabha? Correct. Be a member of a committee of Lok Sabha? Correct. Speak in the Lok Sabha? Correct. Vote in the Lok Sabha? Incorrect. Because you are not a member of the Lok Sabha. But you have a privilege that you can be part of the proceedings of the Lok Sabha. You have a privilege that you can become a member of a committee of the Parliament. You have a privilege that you can speak in the Parliament. But you don't have right to vote because you are not a member of the Parliament. Which means, which of the statements given above are correct? 1, 2, 3. C is the right answer. And this is where I'll tell you something else as well, something important as well. When you see this question asked in the examination, sometimes what you also do, you know the correct answer, but you are mentioning an incorrect answer. Why? Because you become confused. What is the question asking? Correct or incorrect? Or you take time. Then what you have to do, against every statement mention either C for correct, I for incorrect. So that when the question is asking you, which of the statements are correct? C for 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, C. C is the right answer. If you will only mention, take part in the proceedings of Lok Sabha, be a member of the Lok Sabha, speak in the Lok Sabha, vote in the Lok Sabha, maybe you will get confused later. And this, out of experience, I'm telling you, some students have made such mistakes. But what is prelims? It's about facts and concepts. What is mains? It's about elaboration, it's about analysis. Sir, give us more examples. I'm here for more examples. Concept or fact. There is something called joint sitting of the two houses of the Parliament. Whenever there is a bill on which there is a deadlock, on which one house agrees, the other house does not. How do we resolve that deadlock? That deadlock is resolved by notifying, by convening a joint sitting of the two houses, where both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha members come together and they vote. Question is, when a bill is referred to a joint sitting of both the houses of the Parliament, it has to be passed by simple majority, 3/4 majority, 2/4 majority, 2/3 majority, absolute majority. A is the right answer. Facts. Same topic, same concept, mains exam. The Indian Constitution has provisions for holding joint sessions of the two houses of the Parliament. Enumerate the occasions when this would normally happen and also the occasions when it cannot, with the reasons thereof. For an ordinary bill, there can be a joint sitting. For a money bill, no. For a financial bill, yes, there can be a joint sitting. For a constitutional amendment bill, no, there can't be a joint sitting. So which are these occasions where there can be a joint sitting, Which are these occasions where there cannot be a joint sitting? And also tell us the reasons why. Elaboration. That is the mains examination. Sir, only for polity, can you give us some more examples? GS paper 3, my dear. And there is one topic that you'll have to cover: security challenges and their management in border areas, linkages of organized crime with terrorism. Now listen to me carefully. Citizenship Amendment Act was passed by the Parliament in 2019. Are you in favor of that law? Yes. Are you against that law? Yes. But are you a civil servant? Yes. Then how do you approach this topic? You can't say that since I am opposing this law, I will only focus on those arguments which speak against this law. Why this law is bad, ugly, unconstitutional. Since I am in favor of this law, I will not read anything else, but I will only read those arguments which support this law. Why this law is constitutional? What is the history behind this law? Why this law does not violate Article 14 of the Constitution? Why is this a just, fair and a reasonable law? No. You have to understand what are the good things about this law, what are the bad things about this law, and then also suggest reforms that can make this law better. For example, there is a new scheme launched by the government. For example, an old scheme launched by Mr. Modi, Make in India. Is that a good scheme? Yes, because of these reasons. Is it a bad scheme? Yes, because of these reasons. Then give your arguments so that we can strengthen this Make in India. Give your arguments. So you have to understand viewpoints of both those who oppose, those who support these schemes, policies, programs, laws, legislations. Why? And I'm not telling you to deviate your mind or to indoctrinate your mind. I'm strictly telling you according to the requirement of this examination, because this is how the question was asked. The question is, Indian government has recently strengthened the anti-terrorism laws by amending the UAPA of 1967, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and the NIA Act, National Investigation Agency Act. Analyze the changes in the context of prevailing security environment while discussing the scope and reasons for opposing the UAPA by the human rights organizations. Why these changes were necessary and why these changes were opposed by the human rights organizations. You have to understand both for the civil services examination. One thing that you must keep in mind, whatever your time period is, whatever your daily routine is, please make one thing your habit. So what is that? Whether you are a morning person or an evening person or a night person, whether you are studying 2 hours in the morning, one and a half hours during the day while you are in office, or 3 to 4 hours once you're back from the office, or if you're preparing for this exam full time, no matter what your routine is, but just before you go to bed, no matter what time is it early morning or late night or early evening, no matter what time you go to sleep, for half an hour, close your eyes and revise in your mind whatever topics you discussed, you read during the day. Revise it. Revise, and at the same time, try and think logically as well, analytically as well. For example, if you attend a class and I'm going to teach you everything related to Indian polity, relevant for prelims and mains. For example, you are going through a current affairs discussion, everything related to current affairs will be taught to you, for example. But then you should not only be spoon-fed, you should have your own mind as well. Close your eyes and think of what you discussed during the day. For example, everybody seems to be talking about cryptocurrency in 2021, where there was a crypto boom. Look at where the Bitcoin reached. Now it is also zooming up. By looking at cryptocurrency, and if you close your eyes just before you go to bed for half an hour you're revising, don't you think you will come across this question, what is cryptocurrency? How cryptocurrency is affecting the global society? And since I'm preparing for the civil services examination, has it affected Indian society also? This may be no teacher will teach you. This may be if you're preparing on your own, you will not be able to understand. But this you will be able to understand if before you go to sleep, you close your eyes and you try to recall whatever topics were in the news, whatever you discussed during the day. Crypto was in the news, but what is crypto? How is it affecting the global society? Is it impacting India also? Similarly, when there was COVID-19, when there was lockdown, and then there was work from home. Everybody seems to be talking about work from home. Work from home. And once you have read this topic, work from home, then close your eyes once you're about to go to sleep and try and anticipate what sort of questions can be asked. What is this work from home? Work from home, does it have an impact on economy? Does it have an impact on society? Does it have an impact on family? Does it have an impact on the security? So there was a time, and it is still ongoing, where if a woman has to go to a workplace, she takes up public transport, and unfortunately this public transport is not safe for her. She is groped in a public transport bus. Once she is back, she complains to her father or to her brother or to her husband. And what do they advise? From tomorrow, you should not go to the workplace, you should not go to your job, quit, resign. Because your dignity is our dignity. And this is where lots and lots of women would come out of workforce. Because public transport was not safe for them and they could not afford their own transport. But then came work from home. And we saw this beautiful opportunity for women. Without having to go to the office, without having to take the public transport, they could from the comfort of their home also work. But then it also impacted the family. How? Because the man was also there working from home. Man and a woman working from home at the same time, but man would also want everything to be right at his doorstep. He wants to be treated like a king. Where is my lunch? Where is my coffee? Where is my tea? And we also saw the rise of domestic violence during the work from home phase or during the lockdown phase. Close your eyes and think, how is this work from home impacting family relationships? That's how you can prepare for the civil services examination. Long story short, 3 things: motivation, discipline, and guidance. Done? Then take a look at previous year's question papers and your syllabus. Syllabus will tell you what to study. Previous year's question papers will tell you how to study, what to anticipate, what sort of questions can be asked in the examination. And at the same time, you need to understand this one basic thing. What is the fundamental difference between prelims and mains? Prelims is about facts and concepts. Mains is about elaboration and analysis. And that is why you may have a question on your mind. Sir, should I first prepare for prelims and then for mains? Or should I first prepare for mains and then for prelims? When should I prepare for my mains examination? Please understand, you can't segregate and separate prelims from mains. There has to be something called an integrated approach. Sir, what is this integrated approach? Prepare for prelims and mains simultaneously, at the same time. In fact, I'll tell you something very important, and listen to me carefully. Even before your prelims exam, your entire syllabus should be complete. Whether for prelims or mains, your entire syllabus should be complete. So that after your prelims examination, what all you should focus on? More and more answer writing, more and more revision, taking more and more mocks, revising and updating current affairs. That's it. You don't have to, you don't need to, you should not feel the need of studying something afresh. So even before your prelims exam, your entire syllabus for the civil services examination should be complete. And how you can do that? By integrating prelims and mains preparation. For example, the Office of Governor. What are the facts and concepts related to Office of Governor? Then what is the recent Supreme Court verdict on the Office of the Governor? Link the two. You're preparing for prelims as well as mains at the same time. So you can't be just focusing on facts and concepts for your prelims exam. And once prelims is over, you will focus on mains. There is hardly any time, my dear, for you to prepare for the mains. So even before your prelims exam, your entire syllabus should be over, so that once your prelims is over, you're focusing on answer writing, you're focusing on revision, you're focusing on updating your current affairs. You don't have to study something afresh from the scratch. But sir, what about current affairs? Current events of national and international importance. Current affairs. So for current affairs, what do we follow? Newspaper. The often asked question is, sir, which newspaper should we read? But that's a bad question. That's a wrong question. I will answer that question as well, but that's not the question that you should be asking. And I'll tell you what sort of question you should be ideally asking. There are two newspapers. Pick one. The Hindu or the Indian Express. Pick one. It can be either the Hindu or it can be Indian Express. Pick any newspaper of your choice. But that's not the question that you should be asking. There is something called news, and then there is something called editorial and column. Fine. News follow any newspaper, which can be either the Hindu or Indian Express, because news is same. Those news items which will be covered by Indian Express will be mostly covered by the Hindu as well. So hardly anything changes. News follow any one newspaper of your choice. But then there are editorials and columns. For that, follow both. Both in the sense, whether the Supreme Court verdict on denying LGBTQ community the right to marry, whether it was good or bad, read the editorials and columns of both the newspaper so that you have different insights into that particular topic. Because news is same. Whether you cover it from Indian Express or the Hindu newspaper, the news is same. Because Election Commission of India announces dates for the Lok Sabha elections. The election will be conducted in 7 phases, mentioned in Hindu as well as Indian Express. What's the difference? But on Ukraine, what should be the right foreign policy of the government of India? For that you will see different opinions. Mentioned in the Indian Express, mentioned in the Hindu. Follow both, read both. But sir, for current affairs, do we make notes? Or instead should we follow monthly current affairs magazine? Or should we follow yours or some other coaching institutes or YouTube channels daily newspaper analysis? What do we do? These are important questions. No two individual is or are the same. If you're somebody who is preparing for this exam full time, you're not working in a corporate sector, you're not pursuing graduation or post-graduation at a college or a university, but you're preparing for this exam full time, I would advise you, read newspaper on your own, make your own notes, revise them. That's going to be highly fruitful and beneficial for you. But if you're somebody who cannot devote 5 to 6 hours on a daily basis on current affairs, on newspapers, because the newspapers will have 10, 12 topics on a daily basis for you to read. Not everything that is there in the newspaper is important for your exam. Yes, every item that is there in the newspaper is important, because if it was not important, it would not have been covered in the examination. It would not have been covered in the newspaper. So it was important. But you have to look at importance from the civil services examination point of view. This exam is not about rote learning. This exam is not about memorizing facts, formulas. But if there is one thing that you will have to memorize, that is the syllabus. So that the moment you open your newspaper and you see the first article or the second article, you should quickly know that I have to read this or I don't have to read this. And how do you know? By linking it with the syllabus. It should hit your mind that this topic is relevant for GS paper 3, it is important for internal security, it's important for disaster management, I have to read this topic. For example, Indian Meteorological Department is now saying it's going to be a period of intense heat wave. Everybody seems to be saying now that this kind of rising temperatures we have never witnessed in the past. How will people come out in large numbers and exercise their right to vote when the scorching sun would be right at the top of their head? But on this there can be a case study, and that case study can be relevant for your GS paper 4. What is that case study? The Indian Meteorological Department has issued an advisory saying it's going to be a period of intense heat wave for the next 15 to 20 days. What are the innovative steps that you can take to prevent deaths due to extreme heat? Pause this video and tell me, what is the answer to this question? Now that is why it's important to practice the art of answer writing. Because if I tell you today to write an answer on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and you have not been preparing for this exam, you are about to start your preparation, you will not be able to write an answer. You will not be able to write even in 50 words. But if I tell you 3 months down the line, write a 100-word article on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, you will be in a position to write in 500 words. Because now you have a lot of information, you have a lot of knowledge. But here comes the challenge as well. UPSC tells you answer should not be more than 150 words, or answer should not be more than 250 words. That means whatever knowledge you have, now you have to restrict it to under 250 words, under 150 words. What to include, what to exclude, what to mention, what not to mention, whether the answer should be in paragraph or point format, it's all about art. That is why you have to practice the art of answer writing. And my dear, 1750 marks are allocated for mains, and mains is all about answer writing. So if you are superior in your answer writing capability, there is no power on earth that can stop you from realizing your dream of becoming a civil servant, of becoming part of bureaucracy. Now coming back to this answer writing practice, or GS paper 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude. And here you have to answer the questions in such a manner that you are already a civil servant. Now what I'm telling you, you are the head of a district. You are a district collector. Indian Meteorological Department has issued an advisory that it is going to be a period of intense heat wave. What are the innovative steps that you can take to prevent deaths due to heat? No two individual will write the same answer. Somebody will say, we will start planting more trees. My dear, you plant trees for the next generation. I am asking you, what can you do for the next 15 days? We will provide shelter to those who do not have shelter. Despite Indira Awas Yojana, Rajiv Awas Yojana, Prime Minister, so many different schemes that have been launched since independence, we still have millions of people who do not have shelter. So if we could not solve that problem in 75 years, how can we solve that problem in 75 hours? This is where you need to learn the art of answer writing. First, what we will do, we will change the school timings and ensure that these kids are brought back from school to their homes by 12 o'clock. We will prepone the start of the school timing. We will prepone the end of the school time as well, so that children are brought back to their homes by 12 o'clock when the sun is at its peak. MG Narega works can be stopped during this 15-day period. Drinking water with ORS solution should be made readily available. The public parks, which are normally closed during the day, should be opened so that traffic policemen, rickshaw pullers can rest under the shade. We should use communication channels, for example, more announcements made on All India Radio, on FM, on social media, because that is what is used by a lot of people these days. That's how we can communicate to the people that you have to stay indoors. Those are the innovative steps that you can take. Innovation cannot be that we will start providing shelter to all these people who are without shelter. We will start planting more trees, which is going to be there for the next generation, but we are talking about what is going to be your duty for the next 15 days, for those who are present now. So read these newspaper articles, and the moment you open these newspaper articles, one thing that must hit you instantly, whether this topic I have to read or not. And what are these topics that I have to read? Those which are relevant for the exam. And how do you know that this topic is relevant for the exam or not? By looking at the syllabus. That's why if there is one document that you have to memorize, that's the syllabus. And if you are somebody who can't devote 4 hours on a daily basis on current affairs, on newspapers, because you already have a job or you are studying for your postgraduate or graduation somewhere in a college or a university, then there is an alternative to that as well. You can watch the analysis of the Hindu newspaper or Indian Express newspaper or any newspaper. These two are the newspapers I would recommend. Follow that. And then don't make notes because you don't have time to make notes. Then you can follow monthly current affairs magazines. But if you have time and you are preparing for this exam full time, then I would personally suggest, please do not skip newspaper. Read your own newspaper. Read these editorials and columns, because that is going to help improve your English comprehension as well. That's going to help in your CSAT, which is becoming difficult day by day, year by year. So CSAT is no longer a cakewalk for the civil services aspirants. The level of difficulty, the standard of questions that we see in CSAT are now mirroring that of CAT. So it may not be CSAT, it may be the real CAT. Bell the cat. And for that you have to practice a lot. But this is for current affairs. Follow one newspaper for news, but for editorials and columns, read both the newspapers. And I would suggest, if you have time, read. If not, follow the analysis, download the monthly current affairs magazine, read it, underline it, revise it, and revise it multiple times. Because if you read it once, it is as good as if you have never read it. You have to read it multiple times so that it becomes imprinted in your mind, so that you are able to recall at the time of the examination. Is that clear? Current affairs. A new scheme has been launched. A new law has been passed. A new bill has been proposed. How do you follow it? Just Google it. For example, that example I have not given here, but I can refer you to a source and you can find out whether I'm right or wrong. A question was asked on simultaneous elections, also called One Nation, One Election. So this topic is in the news since 2017. Now we have a high-level committee of former President Mr. Ramnath Kovind, which has also recommended One Nation, One Election, simultaneous election. So what is the recommendation of this committee? Go through it. It has recommended simultaneous elections. It has recommended synchronizing Panchayati Raj, urban local body elections, to also in such a manner that within 100 days of the simultaneous elections, we should have simultaneous Panchayati Raj, urban local body elections in the entire country. It has recommended one common electoral roll, one common electoral photo identity card. Now, if those recommendations are to be accepted, for that, what do we need? Do we need to amend the Constitution? Do we need to amend some of the laws, such as Representation of the People Act? Do we need to amend the rules and procedure of business, rules of business and procedure of the Lok Sabha? Yes, we have, because it talks about no confidence motion. And if we need to amend the Constitution, do we need to seek the ratification of at least half of the states as well. Those facts can be important for your prelims. But in Mains 2017, there was a question asked. Simultaneous elections may lead to less amount of time or less money, but it will reduce the legislators' accountability to the public. Do you know the same statement was there as the headline in one of the articles mentioned in the wire.in? How? Simultaneous elections or one nation, one election. If you're preparing on your own. For example, if you're joining a coaching class, if you're already part of a coaching institute, or if you're our student, then you don't have to worry because we have a specific current affairs program which is part and parcel of your program, where every week we have 4 classes on current affairs, where we cover current affairs from all the sources, whether it is Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Yojana, Kurukshetra, Economic and Political Weekly, Geography and You, Science Reporter, so on and so forth. But if you're preparing on your own, what do you need to do? Google one nation, one election. You will see 4 or 5 articles. Click on them. Make notes that these are the arguments in favor of simultaneous elections, these are the arguments against simultaneous elections, and then suggest reforms. How can we do it better? What is the alternative to simultaneous elections? And by looking at these articles, sometimes you will expect a direct question from these statements. For example, in 2015, May 2015, an article was written on the scroll.in. There was a bill which tried to amend the Whistleblowers Act. Look at the headline. If amendments to Whistleblowers Act are passed, there may be no one left to protect. May 2015, this article was on the scroll.in. Same year, mains examination, this question was asked. If amendment bill to the Whistleblowers Act 2011 tabled in the Parliament is passed, there may be no one left to protect. Critically evaluate. There may be no one left to protect. So same statement picked from scroll.in, pasted by the UPSC examiner, and this is the question that you will have to write. This is the question that you will have to answer. Similarly, in international relations, this question was asked. The United States of America is facing an existential threat in the form of a China that is much more challenging than erstwhile Soviet Union. There was a time when after the Second World War, the world became bipolar. 2 superpowers emerged, United States and USSR. Then there was a Cold War period. Then USSR collapsed, got dismembered. So there was a threat to United States from USSR at that time. But now we see, and there are newspapers, there are magazines which say that now similar threat is facing United States, but this time it is coming from China. And it is more of a threat than the threat that United States faced from erstwhile USSR or Soviet Russia. Where was this question picked from? The Foreign Policy magazine. Stay calm about China. Beijing's ambitions should not be treated as an existential threat to the United States. The examiner has only changed it. Instead of should not be treated as an existential threat, it says should be viewed as facing an existential threat. That is current affairs for you. That is why any topic which is in the news, Google search, look at 4 or 5 articles, pick important points from these articles, one in favor, one against, make notes, use these notes for your revision, and you will expect direct questions as well. Not just that. On current affairs, if I can summarize, newspapers, monthly magazine, current affairs magazine, and the analysis that is conducted, that is done on YouTube by various institutes. You just have to pick a channel which suits your requirements, in a sense where teachers are able to explain you better, Whether we are able to explain you better or some other portal is able to explain you better, pick the right portal, and that should be more than enough for current affairs. But if you want an even more detailed understanding, then you will have to assign a lot of your time on current affairs by Google searching important topics which are in the news, by reading lots and lots of articles, by picking the important points from these articles, making notes, problem solved. But sir, what about optional subject? There is one line that I often repeat, and it has now become my favorite line. George Orwell, he writes in Animal Farm, all animals are equal. But later on he changes it and says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. For this exam also, all papers are equal. Because whether it is GS1 or GS4, 250 marks. Essay or one optional paper, 250 marks. Optional subject 1, 2 papers, 250 marks each, 500 marks. But one paper, all papers are equally important. But there are some papers which are more important than others. One such paper is GS paper 4. The other is essay. And the third one is optional subject. I'm not saying neglect other areas, other subjects, other papers, other topics, other concepts. But if you're stronger in these 3 areas, GS paper 4, which talks about ethics, integrity and aptitude, if you're stronger in essay, if you know the art of writing an essay, and that can only come through practice. Practice, practice, practice. Sir, I can't write an answer. Now what do I do? Sir, I can't write an answer. So what do I do? I can't write your answer. I can't appear on your behalf. Imagine the first day when you set out and you wanted to drive a car. How difficult it was. This is the steering wheel. This is the accelerator. This is the brake. This is the clutch. This is the gearbox. This is the rear view, side view, rear view mirror. This is the indicator. Turn right, turn left. Lift the clutch slowly and you abruptly lift it and the car stops. At that time, there's something going on in your mind. I will never be able to drive the car. Or if I'm able to drive the car, but I can never drive on a highway. Even if I drive it on the highway, I will never be in a position to overtake an irritating tipper or a truckwala on the highway. But then 2 months, 3 months down the line, you're zooming past on a highway, clocking 100 kilometers per hour. That's not the speed that you should drive, but you can do that. It's only through practice. Sir, I'm unable to write an answer. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. Initially, you will make mistakes. So it's important to make mistakes now than making mistakes in the real examination. Make mistakes now. Practice. GS paper 4, essay and optional subject. These are the 3 important areas that you have to focus more on. But how do you choose an optional subject? Sir, should I choose an optional subject because it will help me in my GS? No. Sir, should I choose an optional subject only because I have done a graduation from that subject or a post-graduation from that subject? No. Then sir, how do I choose my optional subject? How should I select my optional subject? 3 to 4 criteria you have to keep in mind. Criteria number 1, interest. You should be interested in that subject. If you're not interested, you have opted for subject X. After a week, you lose the interest. You were never interested. You will change your optional subject to Y. Not interested, Z. Not interested, P, Q, R. And by the end of the year, you have covered all the optionals mentioned by the UPSC, but basically covering nothing. Interest is very important because you have to study this subject at least for 3 to 4 months. And if you are not interested in that subject, you will not study that subject. Which means interest is very important, but interest alone will not help. Interest and this subject should have a short syllabus. Why, sir? Because this is a competitive exam. If it was an exam where if you score 30% marks or 33% marks and you have qualified, then I would not tell you to follow this strategy. This is a competitive exam. You have to do well, but you have to do better than others. It's like a race. You'll have to win it. Why choose an optional subject which takes 8 months for you to complete? While your competitor is taking an optional where the syllabus is short and which he or she can cover in 2.5 to 3 months. Interest is important, but interest alone will not help. Syllabus of that subject should be short. But that also will not help alone. Interest, short syllabus, but at the same time it should be scoring. There was a time when public administration was the most popular subject. UPSC realized it. More and more people are opting for public administration. And there came a time where the questions were asked so difficult that public administration, which was once scoring, was not scoring at all. Take a subject where your interest lies where the syllabus is short, which subject is scoring as well, and study material is available. Study material in the form of toppers' notes would be available. Coaching would be available. Sir, why are you insisting on coaching? My dear, I have nothing to lose or gain by telling you the right strategy. I do not teach any optional subject. So I'm not telling you that you should explore coaching for your optional subject because I will be benefited out of it. I will get no benefit whatsoever. But with hand on my heart, I don't want to mislead you either. If by joining coaching, you can complete the syllabus in shortest possible time frame and you can afford it, please do that. If the coaching institute will tell you the art of answer writing, will train you, guide you as to how to write the answers better and will provide you a one-stop destination for all your requirements, please do that if you can afford it. If you can afford it, I will not be the beneficiary because I don't teach optional subject. But this I'm telling you for your own benefit because UPSC tells you that the kind of questions asked by UPSC in optional subject would be one step above the graduation standard, one step below the post-graduation standard. But UPSC, UP stands for unpredictability. The kind of questions asked are of a postgraduate level or sometimes even higher than that. Which means in these 3 months or 4 months, you have to do post-graduation, which normally takes 2 years. How do you do that? You have to do that. And the easiest way is enroll in a coaching class where optional subject will be taught, where in 3 to 4 months, your entire optional will be covered. They'll provide you the study material. I don't teach optional. So don't tell me that there is conflict of interest involved. Study material will be provided. Test series will be provided, your answers will be evaluated. Do it. But please, after this session, don't tell me that, sir, I have now decided. What? Sir, I will take this optional subject because this optional subject is very interesting to me. Interest alone will not help. Interest and short syllabus and scoring and study material should be easily available. Sir, which optional subject then would you recommend? Literature subjects. Tamil, Malayalam, Odia, Kannada, Telugu. Why? Because these are scoring subjects. If not, then take a science-based subject. For example, mathematics, chemistry, physics. Mathematics, answer is either correct or incorrect. It's not the examiner is telling you, I'm not happy with your answer. I'm not satisfied with your answer. You should have written something else. You should have written it like this, like that. You have to be satisfied because the answer is correct. There is no subjective bias of the examiner when it comes to evaluating these science-based subjects. If not, then anthropology is a good optional. Sociology is a good optional. Political science and IR is a good optional. Why? Because these are the subjects where enough study material is available. But sir, should I choose an optional subject primarily because it's going to help me in my mains exam? No. Treat optional as a standalone subject. worth 500 marks. And if there is a subject which is going to help in your GS, that can be only a residue, that can be only an add-on advantage. That should not be your real purpose of taking that optional. And don't tell me after the session got over, sir, I have taken Tamil literature as my optional subject, but I'm from Punjab. It's a recipe for disaster. Choose a literature subject if you're good at it, if you can understand it. If yes, then literature is the best option. Sir, should we be making notes? This is a very interesting, common question. There are those who say don't make notes. Why? Because this is time consuming. I have a different take on this. Note making is not time consuming. It is in fact time saving. Why? Because making notes, number one, helps in your revision. Making notes helps in your answer writing as well. And you have to make notes particularly of those subjects where no single book can be prescribed. For example, for polity, there is M. Lakshmikant. But M. Lakshmikant is not going to help you much. It can maximum help you for your prelims examination. Then for mains examination, what do? We will look at your standard book, any standard book of your choice, plus newspaper. And for those newspaper columns, you will have to make notes. For example, what did Supreme Court rule on EWS reservation? That will not be mentioned in your Lakshmikant book. But you will have to make notes because that will help in your revision. Otherwise, how will you revise it? And if you are following a current affairs magazine, where yes, it will be mentioned that what are the arguments of the Supreme Court. But if you make your own notes, it will help you in your answer writing, because when you go down and you want to start writing these notes, you will automatically do what? You will include only those points which are of relevance. You will exclude those which are irrelevant, which basically means by making notes, you are also preparing yourself for answer writing, because in answer writing also, you have to remove irrelevant stuff. You have to remove illogical things. Don't write this line because this is too political a line. Don't write this line because this is a controversial line which you should not be using. So by making notes, it will aid your revision, and when you are making notes, your own notes, it is easier to revise them as well. And you would automatically know from which source you have picked this content. So it becomes easier for you to revise. And it will help you in your answer writing. So I would suggest, if you have time, make notes. If not, then the only alternative is following a current affairs magazine. Clear? That is something that I wanted to tell you today. I told you I won't take more than 90 minutes of your time, and it's exactly 90 minutes since we started this session. And if this session has been of some help to you, please let me know in the comment section. I will personally respond to all your queries, whatever queries you have. And don't forget to press the like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of this session with your friends and fellow aspirants. Thank you so much for staying with me on Friday night. Have a great weekend ahead. All the best. Bye-bye. Good night.